Hey everybody, we are live. Welcome to episode 4 of No Major Opinions with Feasel. I'm Lurk.
I'm Nagluria.
I'm Caveman.
Dark Aries.
And our special guest today is Feasel. Hi Feasel, how's it going, dude?
Hello, how you guys doing?
Doing very well,
My computer chair broke, so right now I'm sitting on a piano bench. It's a blessing in disguise, because now I'm forced to have good posture, where previously I was like angled all crap, so...
Well, do you have a piano bench that raises?
Yeah, but like I need...
Well, there
right
you
now
go. You're sitting in the lap of luxury. It's basically like a computer
right now
chair.
it's like at its lowest. Because I would essentially treat my chair as like a tilting bed. I don't know, like those hospital beds that can tilt around and stuff. So if I ever lower out of the cam, remind me in chat to like sit up straight.
Good posture is important.
Makes you sound better in this podcast that we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, so thanks for being able to like reschedule and everything. It was good that we were able to make this happen. Happy about that.
Yeah,
Anyone else? Anyone else have chair issues or anything else going on recently?
Chair issues? No, I mean my chair is it's working. Are we on the chair topic still? Is this chair podcast?
I don't know. Just maintain good posture. It's a good advice. Anything hot happened recently before we start asking Feasel stuff?
I got to go to the DMV today. That's fun.
Cool.
I had to get a Massachusetts state license now, so it's like official. I'm out of New York State.
Rip. I'm still in New York. Sunny, snowy New York State.
I was gonna go on vacation, but that got canceled, so meh.
Dang.
I know, right?
All right. Feasel, what have you been doing recently?
Mostly just working. That's what I spend most of the time doing. Been enjoying. I live in New York also. We've been getting some snow, and I've been enjoying some of that too. I like, skiing, snowshoeing, hiking, all kinds of good stuff you can do during the winter. But yeah, mostly working.
Yeah, right on. I feel that.
Because it's like you got the speed gaming, but you also been like you're one of the old boys of speedrunning comparatively. Like you've been around since at least. Were you at the HGQ 2011 one?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've been to the first AGQ and everything.
Okay, yeah. So it's like, a lot of people, they just started, like, when speedrunning got big on Twitch and, like, bigger on Twitch in, like, 2014-ish, 2013. That's, like, a lot of people, even now, are, like, consider that to be, like in Twitch years, that's, like, a decade. So
yeah.
It's weird. So it's like, when did you first get into speedrunning?
First got into speedrunning, that was probably 2007, I think. At that time, people weren't streaming speedruns or anything like that. I just went through SDA. I found a bunch of videos on YouTube that were from Speed Demos Archive and found my way there and just started, meeting up with the community there and just trying out different projects.
What games did you first run?
Well, I had a whole collection of NES games, and so that was my target, was just to hit up some games that I had played in my childhood and wanted to play better. So I pulled out some. I started with Contra and Double Dragon 2, working on those games a bunch, and then I started to get into some more obscure games and kind of bad games. I worked on Deadly Towers, and I worked on Legacy of the Wizard. That's maybe more obscure. That's not bad, but a little on the obscure side. Just games like that, just things that were special to me, but didn't really have good speed runs or had speed runs, but needed a lot of improvement. So
you also ran Snake Rattle and Roll. That was you, right?
Yep. That's right. That's one of the games I did back in the day. I really liked that game.
Because it's like I never heard of the game before, even though it was like Rareware, and it was like it just seems so weird, the movement in it. I remember it being a lot of fun to watch.
Right, it
I
is very
think I had
weird.
like a Snake Rattle and Roll poster from Nintendo Power with just no idea what it was.
Because it's like I guess it's like a lot of platformers will be like a basic like it's like a coordinate like horizontal and y value, and it's games that have movement that's like not on the same like dimension. I guess it's just kind of hard to like mentally compute everything that's going on.
Yeah, you do have to sort of translate that 45-degree angle difference in your head. The game reminds me a lot of Marble Madness. It's the same kind of idea, except in that game, they actually let you choose your control scheme. So you could make it so up and down, left and right, actually make you go up and down, left and right. Or you can do the tilted, 45-degree tilt. But
Plus the
Snake
level
Rattle Roll doesn't
design.
give you that option.
The level design is a lot more simplistic.
Yeah.
Like the last like 2 levels in Marble Madness have some gimmicks to them, but nowhere near the degree of like half the levels of Snake Rattle and Roll.
There's no nibbly pibblies in Marble Madness, really, so it's kind of like an inferior game, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I would say so, too.
And like around like 2013 is speeding up on this sort of like SRL and racing. So like where did speed gaming in itself where did you get that idea, and like, or at least not just get the idea,
Actually,
but like lift it off.
before we talk about that, we got to get to where we are. We have to know where we came from. So, I think it's probably part of the story. But I thought that speed gaming was a natural evolution of Speed Gaming League, which in itself was a spin-off from the Sunday Sequence Break, right?
Yes, and sort of. So we did. Okay, so let's see how to start here. So around, like you guys were saying, around like 2013, give or take, was sort of like the watershed in like the general public becoming aware of what speed running was, and a lot of new runners coming in, lots and lots of new people coming in. And so we were doing a podcast at the time, myself and a bunch of other people were doing a podcast called Sunday Sequence Break. And that kind of put us in contact with a lot of players and a lot of different community organizers and such. And I wanted to put together a competition show because I felt there were a lot of people who wanted to get into speedrunning but didn't really know where to start, but they wanted to do it alongside other people and not just on their own. And so we put together Speed Gaming League as a way of like getting players to compete against each other without them having to already know the same games as each other. Because the problem is, you have to know the same game as somebody else to race them. And at that time, we didn't have a lot of huge speedrun communities for any particular game. So the idea of Speed Gaming League was you give people a new game or a game they've never played before right there, on the spot. And they have either, an hour or they have a week or a couple of days, depending on what the format is. And everyone learns the game together and gets to sort of like the same level of skill, and they all compete. And that was a lot of fun. And we played some great games. And the problem with it was just that it was sometimes tough to find people who wanted to learn a brand new game every time. And it was also just a lot of work. It was a tremendous amount of effort just to make one episode of the show. So we kind of tried to look at other formats from there. And let's see. Caveman, I know you were on that, so that's why you remember SGL.
I was. Remember Fun. I basically kind of used the Sunday Sequence Break and SGL as sort of like a means to really get myself into the community. So I wouldn't be me, really, without those shows.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
I think a lot of people could say that, to be honest, especially with the Sunday Sequence Break and like the record breakdown that y'all would do. I think a lot of people tuned in. See,
I was on the
see what game
second
was going on.
episode with Sonic 1 of TSSB, which is a badge of pride I'll make there. Reminds me that at HQ 2013, Flicky, who's also a TSSB host, held like essentially like kind of like a Speed Game League thing where he had like a mystery game which ended up being a Future Cop on the PlayStation, and it was basically like everyone had they would split up into teams and everyone would like run the game so you could get the best run at the end. It ended up being like just the most motivated people from each team just got together and like broke the game, and it ended up getting super broken. I remember Foot Big Mike could beat it in like 12 minutes or something, and that was like, I guess that was kind of like the spiritual predecessor to Speed Gaming League, was the live marathon mystery game.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. And it's great to see. Like, you take a game that doesn't have a lot of speedrun work done on it and put a bunch of speedrunners together and get them to talk about the game and play it. And of course, they're going to break it in lots of crazy ways. Yeah, that was one of the cool things about Speed Gaming League. A lot of the games we picked were not super popular games, not games that people really had a lot of routes for. So a lot of these games, that was like their first real treatment as a speedrun, came through SGL, you know?
I think on SDA there was some threads where people would race or like do runs of certain games. Like I remember Kabuki Quantum Fighter and Ranger X in a thread where like a handful, like I know SMK and Wanu, a handful of people were in that. I don't know. It's
I
not
remember
entirely
there
the same.
being threads for like
There was
competitions.
some like that. Yes, like
Yeah.
the idea has been around for a while. It
Yeah,
just
that's
never
kind of-
really.
Right, it just didn't take off because we didn't have streaming, really. Because
Yeah.
before then, you know, people were doing all this stuff and only the people involved knew. But I think the advent of people streaming their speedruns really changed that. Yeah, there were SRL mystery tournaments. They would do one twice a year, and it would be like 5 weeks long, and each week you get a new game. I participated in a couple of those, and that was kind of one of the motivations for coming up with Speed Gaming League.
So when did the Speed Gaming, just the Twitch channel, when did that like solidify?
We got to sort of like the end of our first season of Speed Gaming League, and we wanted to do something special for the playoffs, and so we switched to a new channel, and that's when we started. That's when Speed Gaming got created. And then after that season ended, we we pretty much exhausted our player pool and exhausted our game list, so we were going to give it a break for a while, and so that was kind of around the time that a lot of people were starting to get into a lot more people were starting to get into streaming, and there were a bunch of the first tournaments. You know, I can't remember what the first games were. I think like a Mario 3 or Mario 1 or something like that. There were a couple, and maybe a Super Mario World. It was definitely something Mario, but there were a couple of tournaments that people started doing, and none of it got restreamed. And then we started to get, let me see, I can't remember what the first one was. I think it was a Zelda 2. I think it was a Zelda 2 All Keys tournament was the first one that I started doing restreams for on the Speed Gaming channel. You know, because I had the equipment and I like Zelda 2, so that's what I started
Yeah,
with.
like the concept of Speed Gaming, it just makes like a lot of sense of having like because like a lot of people do races or stuff like that. Just having like I guess kind of like it would be the equivalent of like the Olympics. Like let's just look at all these events going on and bring it into like one format.
Right, it definitely made sense. Like once I saw that that there was these tournaments happening, and a few people were doing restreams of them, but it was kind of scattered and it wasn't always consistent, and in some cases didn't even have commentary. So it kind of made sense. Like at that point, you know, obviously this is going to be something that lots of people are going to want to watch, and you know, there's going to be more and more tournaments, because it really was apparent as each new tournament happened, everyone was talking about, well, this game needs a tournament, and that game needs a tournament. So it was pretty clear at that point that there was something there. You know, if I could just put together the infrastructure to be able to stream, you know, lots of matches without it being a lot of work. Because it is, I mean, if you're restreaming for the first time, and back then there weren't guides on how to do it, and there was no one else to give you advice. So it was kind of a challenge to anyone getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of like all the work, because you have like commentators, restreamers, and like the runners themselves.
Yeah.
And then like how many people are actually working on Speed Gaming on all the channels?
Well, it depends on the day. Most days I run the broadcasts, but I have other people on staff who help with that sometimes, because, you know, I can't always be around. We also have like 7 people on staff doing different things, taking care of volunteers, managing the schedule, and adminning the tournaments. That's one of the biggest things. When you've got like 12 tournaments going on, you need somebody to keep, you know, updating the commentary, updating the challenge, and things like that. dealing with VODs, highlighting stuff. So we have a team of people at Speed Gaming who work on those things.
So when you say you do the restreams, like there's 4 channels, right? Are you like restreaming all 4?
Yeah, usually.
Holy crap.
Dang. Do you have like 4 setups for that? Like what's kind of the
Right.
back end for
4 computers. Yeah, I got a computer for each channel. So yeah, because you can't really stream. Well, you can, but
It'd be intense.
You get better quality. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get better quality if you use one stream per computer.
So how does like a computer for each stream, that makes sense? Is there any other like tech back end wise stuff that's like the need to know for anyone who wants to restream?
I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. Just go with what works for you, to be honest. Because for Speed Gaming, we're in a kind of unique position that we have to be, running 4 channels at once. So we don't use the standard kind of streaming tools. I mean, we use stuff like OBS, but to actually like position all the stuff and make the layouts and things like that, it's all running on custom software that I wrote. And it can be controlled, pretty easily. You don't have to like make your own screen regions and like stretch, to make everything fit. So
You're not sitting there like cropping all day.
Oh yeah, right. Well, I mean, we still have to do some cropping, but we can save the cropping information so that the next time a person comes up, if their stream hasn't changed, then we're already done.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I mean, that's like because we started out with just 1 channel, and I did a lot of stuff manually. But once we got to 2 channels, you can't really do set up 2 broadcasts at once unless you have some automation happening.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Especially not with 4,
So like, well, yeah, like speedrunning's obviously changed a decent bit. Like for you, how has speedrun, like your speedruns and speedrunning been changed with like just new Twitch and with speed gaming in general?
Well, my speedrunning has kind of come to a halt. For a while, I was still streaming and doing speedruns and things like that. But I just got so busy now that I just don't have time to do it. I do sometimes. I will crack out a game that I'm familiar with in the past, but I haven't really had any time to learn anything new. Also, I haven't gotten a game into GDQ in the last two GDQs, so that is usually my motivating factor for what do I want to do next. It's going to be whatever I, want to present for GDQ, but we'll see. I'll propose some stuff for SGDQ, and we'll see if something gets in.
Yeah, it seems like GDQs is like an easy motivator for most people. Like, whatever game gets in, that's the one they grind all year. So it's like, they like shape their lives around it.
That's how it is with
kinda
me.
neat. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
I base my
show
picks
off
for
the
speed
game.
games on like, is this gonna get into a marathon? Like, otherwise I'll just go do something more productive. Like, not that speedrunning and charity is not the most productive thing, of course, but
So like, I guess, yeah, how, like, cause you do a lot of work, how has that changed your lifestyle, I guess, not just for speedrunning, but just like, that's a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, I do work quite a lot. It's I'd say I still do other things, but like the timing of when I do things has changed because kind of the annoying part about it all is that the times that the channels are active are the times that most people are free. So like most of the time that I would normally, go out and do normal stuff are the times that the channels are going to be most busy because that's when everyone else also has their free time. So now I've gotten used to like doing stuff in the mornings. Like I'll get up and I'll do my errands then, or I'll go running or, biking or something like that, like in the mornings or like well after midnight, So that's when I kind of do all my fun stuff is, not during the hours of 1 p.m. to midnight, but the rest of the day. Certainly changed me to a morning
realistically, not much different from any other nerd, really. Like,
right. Well, except that I don't get to sleep in past noon, unfortunately.
Oh yeah,
the
that's
virtues
the
of
thing.
getting up in the morning,
So I guess that's like a transition from a nerd to like a normally productive human being hours. Where
Yeah, I guess so.
people have like a 9-to-5 job, I guess.
Yeah, well, I've gotten used to not sleeping. That's the other big thing. It took some acclimating, but now I got to get used to the fact that I go to bed at 3 a.m. and wake up at 9 a.m. and that's my day every day. So,
It's the price you pay for being the hardest working man in speedrunning.
oh, thank you.
Self-care is important, though. It sounds like, dang. Do you ever have I don't know, it doesn't sound possible for you to have other people to restream then with the setup you've got going?
Sometimes we do, but the thing is, when there's 4 things going at once, it's really tough to. I mean, I can't. You're not going to find 4 other people, and unless I can replace, unless I can handle all 4 channels with somebody else, then I have to do it. It's not like I can take time off if I can only find 1 restreamer out of the 4 we need.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we do. Sometimes.
How are your 4 computers set up? Because I'm picturing like a 1970s pianist with 5 pianos all around,
Right.
and you have both arms going at it.
No, I mean they're all I don't actually see the machines. They're on a shelf someplace,
Okay.
and I just do it all from my desk. I don't have the machines physically in the room with me.
I
And I
guess,
just
yeah, it's
connect
a
them
good
all.
setup then.
Right, yeah, because otherwise it'd just be loud and warm with all the fans going and everything. But it was at first. When I first set all the machines up, they were all in my office, and it was just 110 degrees in there all the time. So that had to be. We had to move them over to a closet someplace with some ventilation, so I wouldn't have to, sweat all day. Yeah, and then so mostly I just have a single machine that I use with a bunch of monitors on it that I put all the streams up on.
How many monitors do you have?
In front of me now, 4. Yeah,
Damn.
it's plenty. That's all you need.
Yeah, definitely with anything like online marathons, restreaming, doing anything on 1 monitor is just painful. You need 2 or even 3 to be reasonably adept at
Actually,
everything.
that reminds me of TSSB. I remember Dougfist posting a photo, I think, of it was just a print screen of his desktop with 2 monitors, and it was just every pixel had a program open on it. Oh, I don't remember. Yeah, Twitch chat and all the
Yeah.
programs and stuff.
Yeah, the setup for TSSB was pretty complicated. There was a lot of different components, and yeah, that was fun. I did the broadcast for that for a while too after Duckfist went on hiatus. And I'd say that's more work than running a tournament race, really.
I guess, yeah, with TSSB, you also had the records of the week, which ended up being it just got longer and longer as speed gaming got more and more popular. That would take up a decent amount of time just organizing all that.
And there was the weekly game showcases.
Yeah.
Well,
Which was the most,
semi-weekly.
which was that was the most fun part for me, was
Yeah.
seeing people talk about their speed runs. I guess, yeah, in other retrospective stuff, is there any speed gaming big races or highlights, moments that's really stick out to you?
Man, let's see. Most of the time, I don't even get a chance to really watch the races. I just kind of, I set them up and I make sure that nothing's broken, and that's about it. I always like the finals of tournaments. The pressure is just so much higher on everyone, and I just kind of like that. Just that it means something really. And it's just cool once we finally get to the end of a tournament and everyone's, got a real positive attitude. I always like those races, the last races of tournaments.
I guess, yeah, because I remember when CFB and I can't remember who it was in Super Metroid, they agreed to get every single save they would save at, and it was funny with how how dumb it was.
Right.
That's because that just stands out because it's so antithetical, but it was still entertaining. So it made it for a fun race.
Yeah, I like the weird ones. I like the ones where somebody game overs or crashes, and then they kind of quit. And then the other person also game overs or crashes, and then they quit. And then the first person's like, oh, wait, okay. And then they start going again. And the other person starts going again. And then the first person crashes again. And it's everyone's pulling their hair out. Those are kind of fun.
Is there any games that have been raced that are kind of noteworthy for crashes? Not just soft locks?
Oh man, we some of the randomizers, not so much anymore, but when we first started, we would get a lot of like randomizers, soft locks. I remember the Super Metroid item randomizer. There's like one particular spot when you're going down the elevator into Blue Brinstar, and it's like one out of like 8 people, the game will just crash there on them for no reason. And so we had a bunch where we had at one point we just had the people like test out, can you, because there's no items that you pick up on the way, can you get there without it crashing? Okay, you can, fine, we'll reset and now we'll actually do the match. So yeah, that one was one. Games that are notorious for crashing, I don't know, I'd have to look back. Some games really are so unstable that it's hard to do tournaments of them, but we tend to
And I
not.
imagine randomizer wouldn't help with that.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, right? Because the randomizer, it's already a hacked game, and usually it's in constant development. In the Link to the Past randomizer, nowadays it's pretty solid. The logic is pretty solid, but when we did our first one, there were, a lot of soft locks and things.
Are there any cases where the randomizer hack, it's actually more stable than the game it's based on? Because like they've just done such good work.
Yeah, I mean, there are cases like that. The Final Fantasy 1 randomizer, that's like a game with it's notoriously like broken. There's like a lot of nothing broken in like a way that helps speedrunners either. It's all just like stupid things that didn't work in the mechanics, and the QA people just didn't exist. They just didn't test anything.
This spell does nothing.
Right. Oh, that's like a third of the inventory. A third of the spell inventory does like nothing. Yeah. And some of the stats don't do anything. It's there's a bunch of things that are wrong. And so I think it's cool that they actually went back and fixed a lot of that, like, or at least made it as the game developers intended, because it kind of takes a little bit away from the game, like all these things that were supposed to work that don't. I think that's kind of cool. They went back. So, and that's a less buggy game than the original, that, the hack of it is.
CFB in chat asks...
there's some chat questions too. Let's actually...
What's your opinion on racers agreeing to memes mid-race?
Agreeing to mid-race? I mean, if people want to do a meme category and they agree on it ahead of time, that's great. Mid-race is kind of weird. Like, you already going. Like, how are you going to switch over what category you're doing?
I guess it might just be like agree to take every save, kind of like he did, or if there's something that's not so much like a huge categorical shift.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if the players are okay with it, fine. And we don't enforce anything like that. Like, if the category is any percent and the players say, we're going to do 100% instead, and then one of them's like, no, just kidding, I'm doing any percent. Well, then they win the race because, as far as we're concerned as tournament organizers, any percent is the category, right? I mean, we haven't seen anybody do that yet, but you're sort of, you're kind of on your own there if you make an agreement with somebody and they don't stick to it.
All right. Tupelo87 asked a while ago, does Feasel, that's you, have any plans to introduce different types of tournament formats like discussed in the Discord? I don't know which Discord he's talking to, but do you have any plans to introduce different types of tournament formats?
We do. There's a lot of good reasons why we stick with, group formats or with like bracket type formats, just for convenience of scheduling and the convenience of everyone involved. But sometimes we have people come to us with different ideas for formats. I don't know. It really depends. I mean, there's a lot of constraints. You can't really do full round robin. You can't really do stuff like that. We've seen some... Oh, geez. I'm trying to think of some of the weird ones. We've had a couple that aren't just standard tournament formats. Swiss format is becoming pretty popular lately. That one, we didn't really like it at first because of the fact that you can't start the next round till everyone from the previous round is finished. You can't do the seedings for the next round. So it kind of imposes a hard deadline that can't be, moved at all. But that turns out to be one of the ones that people like best just because it gets the most fair matchups, most even matchups. So that's kind of cool. We'll probably do more of that. As far as other formats, I don't know, like, the race itself is the important part. I kind of worry that doing something kind of out there that's hard for the viewers to understand might take away from it as opposed to helping. But I'm always open to new ideas for formats.
Yeah, because you don't want like the format to be the point of the stream. You want the races.
Right. Right. Like I was thinking it would be cool, like way back in the day, I was brainstorming ideas for, it'd be cool to have like a world map and like each player is on that map and then they like move to the next square over and that's like a goal, like, oh, you need to do this and collect these 3 things. And then the other person moves to a square next to them and does a different goal and that tries to like block them or something. There's like all kinds of like complicated stuff you could come up with, but at some point it's like, well, the focus on the speedrunning or is the focus on this weird format that we're doing? Not that I wouldn't try something like that, but usually that's why we stick with pretty vanilla tournament formats.
That makes sense.
Mungo Meat asks, do you ever seek out particular games for tournaments, or are all the games brought to you by the respective communities?
It's a little of both. At first, it was all just whoever was, whatever communities came to us. And then we tried doing a couple of tournaments ourselves because there were games that, we looked around and said, all right, there's a lot of players for this, but nothing really happening. So we should, we could try something. Now I'd say it's a mixture. We definitely constantly get suggestions from people wanting tournaments, but also I spend a lot of time just looking at what people are racing on SRL, what leaderboard, what games are getting a lot of stuff posted on the leaderboards. I look through the community directory and I see what are people playing a lot of, and now we actually go out and try to put together tournaments that we know people will be interested in.
Actually, second on speedrun.com's like active player list is Getting Over It. Have you had any tournaments of that?
No, we haven't yet. That's the other thing is sometimes you'll see a game will be popular like for a brief window of time.
Yeah.
It'll be like a couple of weeks where it's just like the most popular game for people to race. And then you do a tournament of it, and by then the hype's all worn off and no one's interested anymore. So that's something
I
we always have to
imagine
be careful.
Celeste looks like it might kind of have like
Celeste looks like it has legs for a while. Celeste
Yeah.
looks like it's going to be a really
kind of like how Shovel Knight for
hit.
like a lot of people played it for a while and still do.
Right, yeah, and it
it'll
took us a while to get the Shovel Knight tournament going, but yeah, that was one that stuck. Ori and the Blind Forest, that was a game that I remember everyone was streaming it at first, and I was wondering if that was going to die off, but then the Ori community came up with the tournament and we streamed it and it actually been very successful. So yes, Celeste is definitely a good example. We got a Cuphead tournament coming up. Hopefully that game retains its player base long enough for us to do that.
Or I could see maybe like Strider on the NES since the GDQ tutorial thing.
Yeah.
Maybe that could get some.
The thing about Strider is it's so
behind it.
short. It's so
is.
short. That's
Yeah.
sometimes that's a limitation on a lot of these games. They're just like either the game is way too long or way too short. I mean, you could have a person beat Strider like a best of 5 or something like that, but it's
best of 20.
best of yeah, I mean, right?
Because I guess, yeah, like with the mystery tournaments, like the puzzle tournaments, they aim for like at least 30 minutes, like 30 to 45 is like what they're looking for like a new player. And I imagine like that's kind of like where like Super Metroid any percent would be.
Yeah, that's fine. 20 to 30 minutes is that's the minimum. I kind of like things to be about 45 minutes to an hour. I think that's kind of like the right length for a speed run that we're going to have a tournament of. Because also you don't want to like do a 5-minute game because then like, it takes you 20 minutes to set up, then 5 minutes to do the run, and then like 20 minutes of talking about it at the end is kind of silly.
Kind of like a Minesweeper tournament would just be terrible.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we haven't done a Mario 1 any percent tournament because that's kind of short. Although, I mean, for stuff like that, you can do best of 3 or best of 5 or something like that. But for the average viewer at home, it gets kind of boring just like seeing the same game beat back to back over and over again by the same people.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do have to do some consideration about game length.
Yeah, where do you actually see speed gaming going in like the coming years?
That's a good question. We have 4 channels now, and the plan has always been to expand it laterally, to make more speed gaming channels just to fit the load we have, really. Because in order to keep one channel going for most of the day, let's say you wanted to keep the main channel going for like 16 hours a day, you need like 3 other channels just to handle the overflow that you get during prime time. Because if you've got one thing going on at a time at noon, then you're going to have 4 things going on at a time at like 8 p.m. that same day. So really, we just needed to expand to be able to fit everything in so we didn't have to keep turning people away. From here, I could make more speed gaming channels. Just keep buying more computers. I mean, the fiber connection I could put 100 computers on it, I guess. But at some point, there'd be other logistical issues. I'd probably rather do something more, rather expand into like themed channels. So like just rather than just making more general purpose speed gaming channels, make stuff with a certain theme. And the other thing I want to get into is like foreign language restreams. So, I mean, even just with what we do now, we could take the exact same content and just put, Spanish or French speaking commentators on it or German commentators on it. And just like, boom, another channel right there, just with the existing races that we're doing all day long. So that's probably the most appealing thing. I'd like to start to put together some content for, people in other languages.
With expanding, do you think that, let's say you wanted to add a new channel or two, do you think that you'd be able to handle it yourself, or are you going to look into more automating the streams or getting more restreamers? Like, where do you think in the future that's kind of going to go?
4 is the most that I can do by myself right now. Even doing 4 broadcasts simultaneously sometimes is really tough, especially when you have like 3 or 4 of them starting at the exact same time. Any more than that, it's just not possible. So really my plans for speed gaming are to try to make the tools more usable by volunteers, because there's a lot of people that want to help out and have no real way of doing it. They help out with little things here and there, but I mean, there's a lot of people who just, would help out if we, had the ability to let them. So right now what I'm working on...
User-friendly tools, yeah.
Right, and tools, well, part of the thing is like, I don't, like, when we get volunteers, it's like somebody who 5 minutes before the race starts is like, oh yeah, sure, I'm around. And I'm not going to like give the person that I met 5 minutes ago full admin access to the restream machine, right? So part of the difficulty is coming up with like a limited, like letting the person only do a limited set of things, in a way that's secure. Because, I mean, they could do anything they want. It would be easy if we just, gave everyone remote desktop access to the machines and we're like, all right, good, you run the restream.
Right.
But, we have to kind of like restrict who gets access and how much access they get and, how long does the access last. So I think before we can get to the point where we have a lot of people helping to run the restreams, we kind of need some more infrastructure there, which is what I'm working on now. We'll get to that point, and I think that's going to be the key for advancing, because we have a lot of people that want to help with running the restreams from their own machines, but they either just don't have the good enough internet connection or a good enough stream machine, or they just don't have all the software tools needed to do it. So it certainly makes sense to be letting people use the machines that I've got. I've already got a bunch of machines. We should put them to use rather than making everyone else do it on their own machines.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going to go.
Because
I'm picturing...
go ahead.
Well, no, because I was just gonna say that's like I'm picturing someone getting remote control and then just like using speed gaming as like a Bitcoin farm.
Right, sure.
Getting all the computers farm Bitcoins.
Yeah, I considered doing that because after I got all these machines, and it's like, well, they're not on from like 12 hours of the day, the machines are off. Well,
yeah, like 5 years ago, that was probably like worth the
now it's not
computational effort. But now it's
I looked into it. Yeah, because GPU you used to be able to mine with GPUs. Yeah, in a number of years.
And it would
ago.
it would be actually like worth it to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, not worth it now. You have all the dedicated dedicated machines for it are so much more powerful than the GPUs. I mean, you could mine like, Ethereum or like some of the other coins and things like that. Some of them are not quite at the point where the problem is too hard for graphics hardware to do it. But, yeah, the benefit's not that big, I wouldn't think.
I guess one way for the future of speed gaming is make your own coin, give it to winners.
Speed
there you
coin.
go.
Speed coin.
Speed coin.
We don't need to get there, I don't think. I mean, it would make things more interesting. An arbitrarily defined cash prize of no value.
The coins are solved by finding glitches in new games. Somehow.
A man can dream.
So speaking of Bitcoin, how can folks be supportive of the show for you?
Well, you can support us with Bitcoin. We do have a link on
Hey.
our Twitch profile to a place to send Bitcoin. But probably, the usual stuff. Just watch. It plays the ads. We get the revenue from that. And subscribe to the channels. People can donate with PayPal. But if really, in the next coming weeks, we're gonna start bringing in a lot more volunteers. And so probably the best way to help out is just to volunteer. We have, if you type, I can't remember what the command is. I think it's help or it's volunteer maybe in the chat in any of the Speed Gaming channels. I think it'll give you a link on our volunteer sign up form. But yeah, people help out with direct donations through PayPal. We have a Patreon that you can use as well. So yeah, that's probably the way. We're just this sort of having a staff is sort of a new thing. It just started in December. It was just me doing everything until then, when Mythical 9 was sort of helping out, as a volunteer, although doing a ton of work. And so it's really just in the last couple of months that I started to really put Speed Gaming together as a business, because it grown so big for me to do things all myself. So I did need to have staff, and then I need to figure out how, on the relatively modest amount of revenue that Speed Gaming makes, to be able to support that staff and also, be able to pay my rent. So, yeah, that's been a bit of a challenge, and I'm not, I'm an engineer, I'm not a business guy, so I'm having to learn all this stuff myself. But yeah, we're getting there. We're actually a viable business almost. I work a lot of hours for free, so we don't quite, make ends meet, but we're close.
I think it's Speed Gaming 1 that has the blat command.
I think we still do. That one's there's a controversial topic.
Blat split, the worst timer.
Yep.
Actually, I do have another question now that I've just thought of it. Do you think at any point you'll start implementing, if you already haven't, any sort of like quality guidelines for the people who are like participating in tournaments or anything like that? Because we run online marathons, right? And oftentimes a lot of it involves, okay, this is your stream. Why is it in the wrong aspect ratio? Why are you streaming in 1080p at like 1,000 kilobits a second? That makes no sense. Why is your mic level so low, but the game is so loud? Is there any, do you already do any steps to that right now? Is there anything you might be looking at into the future, or?
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing. Right now, whoever's setting up the broadcasts will test their stream out ahead of time if possible, or they'll test get the audio balance ahead of time. But yeah, that's a big thing, because people who stream a lot, people who are regular streamers, they have this stuff worked out. They've already figured out how to make the stream look good. They know how to use the tools. And the people who show up for tournaments are exactly the opposite. These are people who don't stream, like half these people don't stream whatsoever, except for the fact that they're in the tournament. So they don't have any of the know-how. And so we have a lot of problems with that, just like people who just don't have their stream configured right for their internet connection or for their machine. They don't know how to set bit rates. They haven't ever, tested their volume balance. We have, when we do marathons and stuff, we put together guides for the streamers, but it's just, everyone's setup is so different. There's really no, I don't even know what they're using to capture. They could be using Amarek. They could be running through some other thing. They could be, directly running their capture card into OBS. They could not even be using OBS. Sometimes people use these third-party softwares, not OBS or XSplit, but some other thing I've never heard of. And it's like, how am I supposed to help them get set up? Yeah. But I think the key is really going to be getting people to help with the setup, as opposed to just finding some instructions for, everyone follow these instructions and you'll be fine. Because one of the things we try to do at Speed Gaming is let people have their own streams their own way. Because mostly people are streaming to their own channel, and I don't want to tell them, hey, change the way you do things because of this. I want people to be comfortable. I want their stream to look the way they want. It's still their stream that we're, borrowing for the time being. So I'm a little hesitant to tell people, all right, forget what you're doing. This is what your layout's supposed to look like. This is your streaming tool. This is where you run your audio through. I kind of let people do it on their own. So I think we'll probably just have to spend more time getting people to sound check them and stream check them before they go live. Probably.
Do you think there'll ever be an on-site Speed Gaming tournament, or is that do you think it's only going to be purely online?
Well, there absolutely will be. I can't really give any details out yet, but you very well might see one this year.
Cool.
Ooh,
Exciting.
the exclusive.
Fancy.
But yes, I would love to get into doing some live events. I think that we have enough of a viewer base and enough of a player base that we could absolutely do that.
Do you
And
think?
question- I was just going to read the question from a question from chat was like, what's the minimum number of like entrants for like a tournament to be feasible on speed gaming? Like at what point to be like, there's just not enough people. You have 3 people here. This isn't a tournament.
8, I'd say. Less than that. And people come to me all the time with, they want to do something for a game, but they don't quite know exactly what. Some games aren't really ready for a tournament. What I usually suggest is if you don't really know how many people are going to show up, start out with the weekly race. Do a race, once a week, get some commentators together, see how many people show up. If you have a game that we want to show off, but we only can find like 4 runners, well, that's fine. You can do just a little 4-man tournament. Everyone plays everyone else, and the top 2 play each other for the win. You can put it all together real quick. That's what I would say. But if you want to do like a long format tournament, like what we do for most of these games, I'd say you probably need about 8.
What you do is double elimination?
Depends. It depends. Actually, double elimination is kind of annoying because of the way that it gets really bogged down in the losers bracket. Because there's twice as many losers bracket as winner bracket matches. So those tend to fall behind. But sometimes we do. The tournament format we seem to like most lately is groups into single elimination. So you start out with groups of maybe 4, depending on the number of participants, and then have the top 2 people in each group advance to single elimination, and then they just do a single elimination bracket with no losers bracket. That's what we like. Although lately we've been doing Swiss instead of groups, and that seems to work pretty well.
The normal formats, I think, from like fighting game stuff, where a fighting game match can be like just a few minutes. Whereas with speedruns, you need to take into account that this can be like an hour long or more.
Right. That's one of the limitations is we don't, occasionally we'll do something where just like all in one day, we'll just put a bunch of matches back to back and do the whole thing then. But that only really works for really short games. Most of the games that we do, are going to last over the course of like a month and a half. And so people are going to schedule whatever time of day that they're available. And usually the runs are a little bit on the longer side. So, you have to be kind of cognizant of being able to fit in with everyone's schedules.
Also, I know, I think most, if not all of your, of the streams done on Speed Gamer are like live.
Yep.
Yeah, because I remember with the Dark Areas, you could probably talk more about, they would, just to fit with more people's schedules, they would have people like race previous times and then just like playback.
Yeah, so what we've been doing with the Mystery Puzzle Challenge anyways is because I'm kind of in the same situation you were anyways, is that most of the restreaming I do myself, which between work, when I didn't have a job, it would have been a lot easier, but now that I actually work and it's a varied schedule, it's kind of hard to try to fit everything in. And the only other person who kind of has the setup because I've shared it with him is those crazy guys, because it involves like an intro video that I've made, and whenever the game gets announced, there's a little video there, so I can't just share the whole thing of videos that I have, and if I'm not available, then I can't just hand the one over, and because I don't want to spoil the game list or anything like that, trying to make sure that that's all under wraps, and it's very tough to get it out. So what I've actually been doing is getting everybody to stream to our server, and it actually just local records the VODs. And there's a tournament moderator who watches that. And so that way they know everything's kosher and everything like that. And then on the weekend, like let's say tomorrow or Sunday, I'll just grab the VODs that happened that week and then we'll air them that way. And it's live, but not live in a sense.
All right, the commentary's live.
Yeah. The commentary is live, but the videos were hidden under wraps.
We occasionally we will do that. If we have a match that it's really important, and the 2 players just can't find a time, and we don't want to DQ somebody because it's a really critical one. You don't want a tournament to be won or lost based on somebody had a busy week. So we have done that on occasion. I'm looking into being able to do that more. Somewhere on my to-do list is to be able to have a better setup for intaking these local recordings and syncing them up, and so we can play them together more easily. But there's a bunch of limitations to that. Part of the problem is that we kind of want it to be secret. We don't really want people to know. We especially don't want the other, like if the two players aren't doing it at the same time, we don't want the second person who goes to know how good the first person's time was.
Yeah.
You know, because you shouldn't have that information. You shouldn't know how well the other person did. But we don't want it to be like people would have to stream to like alt channels. And I guess that's kind of, you kind of have to do that. Otherwise someone could just go to the other person's channel. But people like to stream to their own channels. They like to have their viewers watching them do the race and to, you know, see the emotes that they drop in chat when things happen. And, you know, it's kind of part of the experience for them. So that's why we're kind of on the fence, because we do want people to, for the most part, be able to stream like they normally would, you know, in the setting that they're most comfortable. But there's definitely something to be said for getting all the matches pre-recorded and then, you know, just playing them with live commentary, because then you don't have any worries about, oh, this person's late or this person didn't show up and we've already booked the channel and now the commentators are sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, it's like logistically much simpler.
Yep. So yeah, for a while I was thinking instead of expanding to multiple speed gaming channels, we would just pre-record everything and then we would just like the whole day would be already like set up and we'd just have races back to back. We'd just queue up the next set of odds as soon as one finished. But you know, those logistical problems, it ended up being easier to make multiple channels and have them all just, you know, mutually raid each other when one ends and the other one's going. And that ends up giving us enough of a flexibility to do what we're doing now.
Any other chat questions?
I don't see any. Let's keep the show on the road. Let's keep moving.
Sure.
Well, I guess, yeah, for guest selected topics, like I was like, the Twitch terms of service has changed. And for what I've seen, it's like for most people, probably not that big a deal. It's mainly going to be the streamers that kind of try to be as much of an asshole as they can, like the really toxic people. I mean, some of them are famous for it.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see what happens. Because I know, like on Twitter, I make really stupid tweets that are just like jokes, but it's like, can that be, would that be an issue? I'm not sure. It'd be, I don't know, something to see.
What's the change? I haven't been keeping up on this.
So they expanded their kind of harassment policy to also being to parts of the internet that are not Twitch. So like if you're harassing a streamer after they banned you on Twitter, for example, they can take that into account when like banning you from Twitch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, specifically like harassing a Twitch streamer or like something related to Twitch on a third-party site.
Dude, the entirety of YouTube on any channel, on any video I've ever been on is in trouble.
Yeah. And then also it's like the if you encourage activity, so if it's like your fans like watch your streams or video and then they just go be assholes elsewhere, like you're kind of there was a ruling somewhere where it's like you need to be like wary of that. Like you're not exactly fully accountable for actions of like people who may or may not watch you do, but it's like you need to encourage, like you can't encourage like negative behavior.
And people need to take responsibility for the things, to some extent need to take responsibility for the things that their stream chat does. And it's a real tough topic because, you know, I can't, if I've got, 600 people watching me, I can't be babysitting all them. And, some people are going to be jerks and, it's hard to be responsible for all that. But we've had a lot of cases in races. We've had a lot of cases where, if one of the runners is known for having like a relatively toxic chat and, during the race, the person's, fan base will jump into the other person's stream and start harassing the other player. And, it's tough to know who to blame because it's, these are the people that your chat reflects you. Your chat's not going to be toxic unless you yourself are toxic because those are the people. I mean, to some extent, I don't want to say that, that a streamer's toxic all the time, but I mean, you do what you can to try to keep chat civil. And if you don't do that, then chat can turn into something like that. And then you got to kind of recognize the power that you have. If you have hundreds of people watching you every day and you've created a certain atmosphere among them, you got to realize they're going to go out into the world and start doing other stuff in your name, like hopping into your opponent's chat and talking and trash talking them, You're somewhat responsible for that, even though I don't really, it's hard to explain, how do you prevent that? You prevent it by
Yeah.
being a nice person every single day. I mean, that's a real hard thing to try to tell someone to do.
I think the main thing would be like as long as you don't encourage negative behavior, like that's like the first step. Don't encourage that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but it's like the only people I've seen who are really angry about this are like people who really go out of their way to be as negative, just like genuinely obnoxious as they can.
Right, and people. Well, I mean, I see some streamers are real assholes just to the people who watch them. You know, it's the way they talk to their own
Yeah,
chat.
that's their like persona.
Right, and that I think breeds that same kind of behavior in the viewers, and you know, it is partially the streamer's fault. I mean, if the viewers start, you know, acting up and, you know, being assholes themselves, in some way it's, you know, because you sort of encourage that's the culture, that's how we're supposed to do things. Or it's because you act that way every day and only the people who have a similar attitude end up watching you after a while, so you sort of like self-selected your, you know, your fan base in that way.
And there's like a real difference between like in like a fighting game or like people racing where it's like trash talking, where it's like you're just having fun together, like just shooting shit, and then people actually like trying to just harass, like go out of their way just to make people feel awful. And there's like I pretty much only watch speedrunning stuff on Twitch, but I know there's other like big name Twitch streamers who like that's like their niche is like I am going to be as big of an asshole as I can and stream to like hundreds of thousands of people.
See, the thing is, even with like the shit talking to each other, if you actually read the Twitch, they have like a big blog post and everything else alongside it. They actually specifically mention that you need to be very conscious of what you are saying, even to each other, because what you say is a joke to another person. If somebody comes in and they don't have context, then that could be considered liable for like hate speech or anything like that. So,
and yeah, like depending on like, as I've seen some like where trash talk goes over the line, so it's like it's understandable. It's just where the line is drawn on Twitch's terms of service is kind of hard to say. It is.
Yeah, it is a tough topic because I don't know. Yeah, different people have different senses of humor, and you know, in the right context, I've seen people, you know, just harass each other for fun, and they're used to that, and they, you know, and there's no harm, no foul. But you're right that someone else walking in just sees like one person getting bullied by another person, and they're like, "What the heck is this?" You know, they don't really know.
Yeah,
the
like
context.
if it's like all they listen to is Gilbert Gottfried 24/7. He's the god of comedy, and then they're like, and they're like, yeah, I'm just gonna say the jokes he says about other people, and it's like that's you got to ease into that kind of stuff.
Throwing shade at Gilbert Gottfried, man. What's the deal?
Oh no, I like Gilbert Gottfried, but it's like
Aha, now it's all coming out, Niglaria.
hardcore insult
A
comedy.
likely story.
You can't just lay it on thick at any point in time. You gotta, you know, gain the respect of the audience before you lose it.
Yeah, sarcasm can be really tough to translate over the internet. It's a fine line between like banter and just straight up harassment of someone, I think. But
yeah.
it's hard to say if you've known someone for 10 years and you're just messing with them. That's totally different. But that may not translate over the internet.
So yeah, it's like it's something that does need to be like rules about it, because it can, you know, shit can get nasty. I remember, I guess the worst I've seen was a marathon Trihex was in where he had splits on screen. It was red, and the chat. Oh, it was like an SRG marathon, and it was actually like I felt bad.
I remember
for him. That was nasty. There were some things read out on the donations that were like, holy crap, that's actually really brutal.
Moral of the story: no one please be mean.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's also the case of it's because at least in Twitch's thing, it's like it's really hard to draw a really hard sand in the line that, okay, this is considered bad, but everything under it is considered good, because what everybody's going to do is they're just going to go up to that line and then never cross it. And they're going to abuse the fact that that hard line exists, and this is as far as they can go without doing anything.
Kind of like, yeah, like with GDQ chat, like they want it to be, they don't want like, you know, hate speech in the chat, so they'll do certain mods or sub-only mode, but it's like there are people who will find a way to go around that to hate anyway. And it's like, man, I don't know. I don't understand that mindset.
Yeah, it's basically if you put people in a box, they're gonna try to figure out how to get out of the box. So
Speaking of boxes, let's talk about something completely different because I have a topic I'd like to talk about.
Shoot.
So, we're on a speedrunning podcast, and we have the unique pleasure of having the host of one of the most popular speedrunning podcasts ever on our speedrunning podcast. According to Clear Tonic's survey poll, the Sunday Sequence Break was like the speedrunning podcast that everyone remembers. That with Final Split, of course. So I want to.
Final Split was like the follow up.
Yeah. I want to ask
right.
everyone, and especially Feasel, what do you sort of perceive the niche of speedrunning podcasts? Because we're a fledgling the podcast that could. This is our 4th episode. We're just getting started. And there's various podcasts around, but what service or purpose do you think that overall speedrunning podcasts could give that the community needs?
Well, I like to see things discussed like verbally and not just, on Twitter and such. I feel like you get some better discussions in a format like this. And I like it better than just like hearing one streamer as they're, practicing some game, just going off about a particular topic. I mean, that could be fun. It depends who the person is and, whatnot. But I think something like this really is a great way just for people to discuss issues that are important, like the terms of service change, just having just a forum for that kind of thing and for the chat to kind of get into it and post their opinions and stuff too. It's tough to say. When I did Sunday Sequence Break, it was the only speedrun podcast, so we didn't really have anything to compare it to. And Final Split came out, and a bunch of other podcasts started to follow after that. There's Frame Savers. I like it. I like the fact that there's so many podcasts. I don't feel like I need to revive Sunday Sequence Break because I think people have sort of like taken the mantle and done what they can with it. And I see new podcasts popping up all the time. But really, I think this is just a thing that people don't normally get to see. You see people practicing, you see people doing world record attempts, you see people doing races, you see people doing tournaments. So that's like if you turn on your television, most of what you see isn't going to be something like that. It's going to be more like people sitting around talking about a topic, if it's something that's not fiction, So that I think this is an important thing. Like this is what needed to happen, and I'm glad to see so many people are doing podcasts like this.
The issue I see is like if you want like a speedrun community podcast, like what is the speedrun community? Because it's like everyone that speedruns anything on Twitch or elsewhere like doesn't stream. It's like there's just so many different games or like people. It's like there's no one unified culture around it. So there's not really like a singular community to speedrunning. So having like I could see like each little group or whatever having its own podcast, but it's like the discussions themselves. It's interesting where it doesn't relate to one group because it's not really one group. It's like this big.
Yeah, now that speedrunning's gotten bigger and like even like the classic games done quick runners are sort of getting phased out. Like you said, Feasel, you haven't had a run in a while. There's no like the canon speedrunners in the speedrunning community anymore. There's countless, nameless, but numerous runners in the community that.
I guess it'd be an analog would be like the fighting game community, or if you're to just have a discussion on the fighting game community, just like there's so many games, so many different groups and subcultures where it's like that having a singular topic on that, it's too broad.
Well, see, the thing with the fighting game community is that you can narrow it down to the top players, the people who win tournaments. That's an easily consolidatable like list of people. Like in Evo, there's only going to be 8 of those. If you take GDQ, there's over 200 people. Yeah, if you take GDQ, there's of top runners, that's over 200 people.
Right, but I mean, how many fighting games are there that have big scenes? There's not compared to the number of like games that people speedrun. People speedrun like 1,000 different games, and have actual competition in them. So it is a much more scattered thing. We're split up. I think we kind of lost something when SDA sort of fell out of popularity. We sort of lost something because that used to be the rallying point. And if you were involved in speedrunning and it was the year 2011, you were on SDA, or at least
Yeah.
you just, browse the forums from time to time. And now that's not so much the case anymore. So everyone is all on their individual Discord servers.
Because like
BTC's
SDA
got
had
Discord
it had a structure to it. The community was structured, and then it's
Right.
like too many people in games came in for it to handle, and now there's like the structure just like fell apart, and it's just nothing. There's no real foundation for any like the community in general. It's like this big amorphous blob. I don't know. It's
Speaking
Yeah.
of SDA, what in Europe, we've talked about it a bit before, but I'm curious on what Feasel's opinion is of what you would do if you were in charge. What would you do to kind of like revitalize and bring it back into the fray of being like a top speedrunning place to hang around in?
That's tough to say. Like, I think the reason SDA sort of fell out of favor was the verification process was too slow. We moved to a more of a leaderboard system where people post things and it takes 24 hours to get approved. And SDA's focus was never on that. Their focus wasn't on having world record videos. Their focus was on having a set of archive of quality videos that had all been approved and everyone was happy with them. But that model I don't think really worked for the rate at which speedrunning was expanding, because people
and
want
technology improved.
technology improved, and like now to the point where you don't need someone to run your video through filters to fix the field order and things like that, and you don't need someone to host your videos because it's easier to upload your videos to any number of different sites where they can do that. And also just records started getting taken more frequently. So when there's like a month delay on a thing gets posted, that's completely out of date. All the games that people care most about would never have world record runs on SDA because the world record changed too much. So I just think the concept of what SDA was going for doesn't really quite work. I guess if I really wanted to like revitalize SDA and make it competitive with the other things that are out there, you probably have to switch to a leaderboard like speedrun.com. But at this point, speedrun.com pretty much has that market cornered. Really, the strength of SDA, the one thing that I think they have that other people haven't managed to duplicate is their forums. So for whatever game, regardless of how obscure, even if it's not part of a major series of any kind, there's forum threads on it. And that's like the one thing that you can, still go to SDA for. But I think that's probably where I would have focused on trying to make the forums better, bigger, more usable, more accessible. I don't know.
For me, it'd be the knowledge base, which is
There you
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
underrated, underappreciated.
Because that's what the purpose of the threads really was, is like all this
Right.
knowledge, all this like
Yeah, just having
Game
because that's something that speedrun.com and it does have forums like some games that are like with particularly motivated mods or whatever that could write guides, but it's just having like a central knowledge base that I think would be it's the only place that has even tried to do it, I think. And while it's it's still like it's never going to be finished. It's like it can't be finished because knowledge is always changing. But it's like it's not like at to the point where it's up to date. And I remember I would put everything I know about the games I run. I'd put it on there, and I try to encourage other people to use it, just because that's important. Knowledge is useful.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's forums and there's knowledge base on speedrun.com, but it's just not used. People just aren't using it enough. That's really the issue. So if anything, I would say if SDA wants to try to get back into the market, that would probably be the thing to do. That's what's missing right now.
Market knowledge base is being the go-to thing rather than the
I think also, like, in regards to, like, the knowledge base and the forums, like it was mentioned, technology has gotten way better. A lot of different things have changed with the way people capture and everything. But if you look at their knowledge base and kind of, like, their rules and stuff for capturing, it is really, really out of date. And I'm not, like, their one thing was they wanted high-quality archive videos, but I don't think the rules and regulations for that have even been updated in a long time. So I think that knowledge base could probably use some update in that as well, especially since RGB and everything else is like blown up. significantly. You can buy professional grade capture cards for cheaper than a regular Elgato now at this point. It requires effort, but you can plow through it. There's scalers are a lot more readily available now. So I think that knowledge base could probably use a bit of an update as well. Because
There is a section for AV mods. It just seems to be like it has NES NES and N64 RGB would I think would be the most recent.
yeah.
Some HDMI upgrades, but it's like stuff like that.
I mean, there's you can't really see it because I'm on Feasel camera right now, but there's this black PCB right here, and you can kind of see it. This is an N64 video mod that I'm actually currently working on for somebody. It's brand new. It came out by a guy called Bordy. It does like 240p RGB with the whole deblur. It can do component 240p. It can do 480p actually as well over VGA and components. So it's like things are going pretty crazy now with all the AV mods coming out and everything like that. So, but if you look at SDA, they're not really updating to reflect that as well. That video quality has gotten so much better to the point, at least what's potential now. We don't have to go off of like dazzles and VHS tapes and anything like that. So
I guess and one reason for that is a lot of people who are like, SDA heads. It's like if they were speedrunning in 2004 or whatever, it's like they have lives, they have shit to do. They can't really spend several hours a day just writing up tutorials for how to play Fortified Zone. Which CFB, I'm going to specifically request that you make a page on the knowledge base for Fortified Zone.
Wow.
We gotta spread that knowledge, man.
I do think that stuff like the knowledge base is like the decentralization of speedrunning. Like it needs more of a hub that people like want to legitimize, because I know some people just really don't like speedrun.com. They just really, really hate the site.
Because I think the site's biggest feature is that it lets each community rule itself. It doesn't have this grand rule sets that everything must adhere to, because it doesn't really fit each gamed community.
Yeah.
And I guess, some people hate that, some people like it, but it's like it serves a function.
But if that's like your only outlet into the community, that could be an issue. And, I think stuff like Discord and whatnot is helpful. But, kind of getting back to what Caveman was asking is sort of like this podcast and its purpose, I think, is really to help connect people to more like topics and to more avenues into speedrunning instead of just leaderboards and strats and routes. Like because I feel like I live under a rock sometimes where people pop up and they're like these super popular speedrunners and I've never heard of them ever, and they run some really cool games. And I've learned from them from like Warp World's podcast. I learned about that recently. Some other stuff. So looking to connect people. I think looking to connect the community in more of in more discourse rather than like online tweeting, like you were saying, Feasel.
Mm-hmm. I remember a thread on SD OmniGamer made. It was just on like the theory of speedrunning, just like how you would apply it to any game, and I'm guessing that's like essentially the precursor to like the book the bookies writing or wrote.
Right.
And like that was like super interesting because he's made I remember he made another form of like the future of SD, like what do you want it, where we're going to bring this site, and those threads had like the most meaningful discussion.
Did you know, as an aside, that if you Google the word speedrun, the first site that comes up is speedrunning.com. SDA is on the third page of Google results, incidentally.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's
Where
weird.
does Speedruns Live end up? Out of curiosity.
Let me go back to the first page.
I mean,
Speedruns
I guess just
Live. All right, so we got speedrun.com, speedrunning Reddit, speedrun the Wikipedia article, the speedrunning community on Twitch, speedrun 4, Roblox, a Roblox level, and then SRL.
Wow.
So Roblox is more relevant than SRL now,
Damn.
which
I guess
still
that
is much more relevant than SDA.
that just might be for like word sorting because like it's speed demo. And then Quake and
that's
Quake
what
and
it
Doom.
is. But still, if
Quake and Doom,
Johnny Bag of Donuts wants to learn about speedrun, he's gonna Google speedrun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he's not going to find SDA.
It's gonna find Roblox first.
He's going to find Roblox first, literally.
That reminds me of when at the CDQ when Uyama would like show up to like, you know, say hi, talk about the stuff, and people are like, "Who is this guy?" And I'm like, "Man, I feel old."
Speedrunning gives you slightly different results. You can still get speedrun.com and the speedrun Twitch community,
Oh,
and then this
God damn it,
Wikipedia
Goose.
for speedrun, and then our speedrun, then SRL.
Please don't mention our speedrun around me. Oh,
Then
man.
a Kotaku article on how to start speedrunning video games. I'm pretty interesting. Then speedrunners on Steam. And then a YouTube video by IGN. VR speedrunning is insane to watch, but impressive. And then SDA. And then the TV tropes page for speedrun. This is a lot of fun, actually.
That's amazing, actually.
I wonder how many people got into speedrunning from the TV trope speedrun page.
Hey, we might have pages. You never know. Might as well go through them.
I guess.
So at this point, if anyone in the chat has any questions for any of us or for Feasel or about anything, go ahead and throw that down into chat. But meanwhile, we will get into some recommendations, and I will begin. And I suggest that everybody get a glass of water and drink a nice glass of water. You're probably dehydrated and you need it.
Some solid recommendation right there.
Who made the hydration bot, which counts how long people have been like streaming live, and after an hour, it's like this is how many milliliters of water you should have drank in to stay hydrated. Because that's a good bot. I mean, serves the function. It's
I hope no one saw me stab myself in the eye with my own water bottle.
I guess yeah, you could have like bots that just reminds you to stay hydrated. You know, keep good posture, keep your back straight. Just general good advice. Just a bot that goes around every channel.
We need a be nice to people bot. Just to remind you to be nice to people.
Support your speed friends.
There's actually
Yeah.
some good questions right now in chat. I like this one a lot. That's going more towards Feasel. What game do you want a speedrunning tournament for the most that hasn't had one yet, and why is it Zelda Randomizer?
What Zelda randomizer hasn't had? Oh, you mean like all Zeldas? Like a pan Zelda randomizer?
I think it's more of a joke, but the real question is, what game do you want on as a speedrunning tournament on speed gaming that hasn't happened yet?
I mean, okay, well, if we were talking about Zelda randomizer, I want to see an Ocarina of Time item randomizer. That's still in the works, but I think it's almost ready. I want to see that.
Well, there's Beta Quest.
That's like asymmetric
very
entrance
different,
shuffle, which
but
is
yeah.
real. That's real hard to follow. The entrance shuffles tend to be some of the least like followable ones for.
Yeah, they're totally incoherent.
Right. That's something. Beta Quest is cool, but I think the item randomizer is real where the sweet spot is. You know, people like that the best when you know how to get from point A to point B, but you don't know what will be there, as opposed to you know what will be there, but you don't know how to get there. That's a little less skill based. Man, I don't know. I want to see an AM2R tournament because I freaking love that game, and you know it keeps getting like, oh, we can't show this because it's a hack. But, I mean, come on. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'd like to see that because I think that's a cool game. That's a weird pick. I don't know why I
Shoutouts to
pulled that one
Nintendo.
over here. Yeah, right. Well, I don't think that Nintendo's going to stop that. I think people are just overly concerned just because the person who distributed it got DCMA'd. What is it? One of those, some kind
I
of.
think
He got cease and desisted. He got
DMC, yeah, cease and desist.
Oh, he did actually.
It's weird to me where it's like that's a questionable thing, but now it's like people will have emotes directly ripped from games or stuff
Yeah.
like that, and that's like
The thing is,
Technically, you
I don't know.
can't.
That's weird.
Nintendo's also in the position of that they have to, because there's the legal argument that if you aren't defending your IP, then it kind of diminishes the IP itself. And especially if the 3DS remake of Metroid 2 was definitely in the works, or at least starting to be in the works by that point, and they kind of have to, because them letting AM2R be out at the same time is diminishing their own product. and they have that whole legal
Yeah.
right. There's
It's understandable,
Yeah.
but I'll still give them shit for it.
At least they
Oh,
did
yeah.
it the right way and released the game instead of like building up all this hype about how they're going to make
Yeah.
it and then get
Yeah,
DMs,
the game was out
DCN'd.
and they got. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, Nintendo shutting it down was the only reason why I heard about it. Like that was the news in my neck of the woods. Like, oh, this Metroid 2 remake got canned by Nintendo, and I was just like, oh, there's a Metroid 2 remake. Let me check it out.
I mean,
Remember
So
when-
Streisand effect.
as soon as
When
it's
Lurk said-
released, you can't like undo that. There's always copies everywhere now. So
Yeah, Lurk said it earlier where it's like you didn't hear about like a popular speedrunner like way later than anyone else. Where it's I remember I didn't hear about Clint Stevens who ran Ocarina of Time 100% until like months after he stopped running it. That was like he was like after CFG he was the next like big streamer to run that category. And then it was like I heard about him where he was like a popular dude who ran it, and it was like, oh, he doesn't do it anymore. It's like months ago, and it's like, oh, okay. Because Ocarina of Time 100% is a cool category. That's the one I will watch.
That's the one I will watch.
Here's another question.
CFG is our boy.
Another question from chat. Have you considered bringing back some form of SGL, possibly with a more streamlined format?
Yes, actually, that is something that we would like. SGL, we did two kinds of SGL. We did one where we gave people a week to work on games, and then one where we gave them an hour to work on the games. I think the hour-long one ended up being more popular because people didn't want to commit a whole week. And I think
Yeah.
that actually is something that could help us just with where we are now, because we have a lot of gaps in the schedule. Just because of the way the scheduling works out, there'll be like a half an hour here, 40 minutes there, here and there. And I bet we could like squeeze in some mystery matches, in between, in between races, to keep just to keep the channel up, so we don't have to keep taking it up and down all the time. I actually think there is a place for it in that regard. All over the place, all day long, we could be doing these on and off. Have a pool of players who are ready to go and up for anything, and just be able to tell them, hey, we're going to have a thing coming up at 8:00. Do you guys want to hop in and do it? I think we could do something like that. A more streamlined format for sure. I liked what we did. I like what it kind of evolved into, but it ended up being a lot of work, and it also limited people to playing on emulator. And a lot of people nowadays, especially with all these flash carts, really prefer to just do things on their console. So we would probably have to change our format so that all the goals began at the start of the game or began from like a password or something like that, just so, they would be fair to people who are playing on console. So yeah, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
A more streamlined format.
Randomizers where you can set the seed on console. That's a thing that's kind of new.
Yeah,
Which
that
is-
would be helpful.
Or it's like put in a code and it just uses that as like a hash function.
Right. Yeah.
I guess-
I would love to see SGL come back in some format or another. I really liked it. I don't think there's anything yet that's quite like that, because even the mystery tournament is not quite the same idea.
My recommendation, there's been a Shadow of the Colossus remake out on the PS4. It looks real nice. For anyone who's like wants to see speedruns, this is as far as I know, it's the site that has the most up-to-date records for the game. That's on the PS2, PS3 version, which is functionally the same game, just PS3 has a better frame rate. Although there are some slight differences with like NTSC or PAL or whatever, but so it's like there's cool strats for speedruns with like when a Colossus swings its arm, you launch off and fly a million miles and stuff like that. So it's a good speed run as well as an amazing game. So if you think it looks pretty cool, you should check it out. It's my recommendation. Ooh, but here's a question that's relevant. What's the general opinion of modding games to take out annoying RNG?
Great, awesome. It's not a speed run.
Extremely
with,
topical
Bioshock
right
and-
now as well. Yeah, with Bioshock.
Bioshock Infinite, yeah, where it's like several minutes in, there's like a 5% drop or whatever for an item that will save like several
it's like
minutes.
2%. Yeah.
Oh, 2%. Because to me, it's like the real issue is like, oh, if you could skip cutscenes, then it wouldn't be like 20 minutes in, it'd be 2. So that's what you should really be modding in is cutscene skips. But even then, it's like, yeah, it's weird because it's like I can understand because it's like no one likes, it's like, oh, bad luck runs over, and that's like, it's not fun, but it's like, that's part of speedrunning.
Yeah.
It's interesting to
I
me.
can see that
Right.
like it being 28 minutes in to get this drop is like pretty. It's like, well, you
And
didn't
as
get
far
it.
as,
Go figure.
Yeah, it's perfectly understandable. I know in Symphony of the Night, the toadstool
Yeah, the toadstool.
for 80%, where it's like a 1 in several thousand drop, and then if you get,
you have to get the meal ticket, and then
Meal ticket.
a toadstool has to come out of it, and then you
And
have
so
to
it's
do everything. And you
basically-
still have to do the rest of the run without miss, I think, or no, without wolf.
Yeah, so it's like several 1 in like several thousand odd chances, and then it's
Here's
like,
here's the
you
thing
save a
though.
little
I've
bit of
I've
time.
talked to Rom and I've talked to Dragon Blitz both about this, and their opinion is if it happens, that's any percent. Good luck.
Because yeah, like that's because I think that's the part of speedrunning where it's like, yeah, you want it to be as fun as possible, but it's like categorically, any percent is just the fastest way to beat the game, and that's not for a lot of games. That isn't necessarily fun. Some games are just shit any percent.
Right.
So you can have categories that are arbitrary, and it's like, all right, you have an arbitrary category, and it's fun to play because 80% is crap. That's perfectly understandable.
It actually
Having,
did
like-
happen once. Someone did get the
Yeah.
toadstool drop, but they panicked. They didn't know what to do with
yeah,
it.
they didn't know what the hell to do. I remember seeing the clip of that because he was like, "Rom Scott, what do I do?" Because he was like a newer player,
Man.
and it's like, yeah. I guess what would be other famous? Yeah, because in Ocarina of Time, 100% Dompe heart piece. That's like a notorious, like luck-based element. What other games have like really famous luck-based crap? I'm just gonna mod it, so it's always optimal. Fire Emblem would be one thing.
Well, it's not famous, but I can speak on Zombies Ate My Neighbors, where you have to hit an opening
Keys.
one framer to get a skeleton key that randomly drops from a dumpster right on the first level, and you can do.
And yeah, that game seeds by like the frame, right?
Yeah, it's all frame based on the drop, so you have to hit a single frame. It's not. There's no window. It's a frame, and there's no audio or visual cue for it because you have to reset the console and then hit the frame. So there's no. It's essentially random. The person Albert, who has the record in 90% right now, he has what is it? What is it called? The thing that beeps every.
Metronome.
Yeah, he has a metronome, and it beeps 2 times every frame or something like that. And he had to write this program
what?
that like,
that's
So he
really
had to
fast.
write this program that
That'd be
like
100
also
wait,
took
are
into
you sure
account
it's not-
like headphone delay.
Wait, per
and
second or per frame?
probably per second, or I don't forget.
Yeah, per frame.
Per frame would be
probably
like 120 times a
120
second.
per second.
Forgive my terrible math, but it's something like
4,000 per.
it's something ridiculous that helps him hit the frame more consistently because there's
But,
no
I
cue
wanna
for
make
it.
Yeah,
kind of a
CF3 brings up
slippery
the good point. Super Meat Boy, like
Yeah.
the Larry RNG,
Glitch Girl.
Bandage Girl, and Glitch Girl,
They have
and
a,
it's like
don't they have a Larry patch now that they use for speedruns?
I don't know.
They do, yeah, because that we did a Super Meat Boy, like we do Super Meat Boy races and things like that, and it's always really stupid, like because someone will be winning and then they'll
Yeah.
sit there and then they'll just be there for 5 minutes at Larry, and it's like, well, what the heck's the point of any of this? Why even bother
Yeah.
to practice?
I could see, as a like functionally for races, you want to like standardize or
Right.
Oh,
normalize it.
I've got one. Every single Ape Escape game, the final boss, Spectre, is just like, boy, here we go. It literally does not matter how good or bad your run was. You can always get a better or a worse Spectre. Spectre can last forever in Ape Escape 1, which is a hot category.
Super Mario Bros. 3, the hands I think are like 1 in 8
Yep.
of them grabbing you. So just setting it so that they never grab you, they could do that.
Or not, is
Yeah.
it like 50-50 for them grabbing you? It's like a 1 in
Oh,
8
I
to
think
get
it's
through
like
without any
because
hands.
there's 3 hands. It's like 1 in 8 for each one. It's been a while. I'd have to ask Tompa about all that crap
Okay.
because he was the one who. Oh, each hand is 50%. Damn,
It's 50-50
That's
each,
a lot
so it's
worse
1 in
than-
8 to get a clean run.
Yeah. 1 in 8 to get a clean run.
Right. But yeah, that's kind of
Okay, yeah.
it's tough because like in one sense I do like to see people hacking the games to make them more speedrun friendly in a race context or in a tournament context, because you want tournaments to be skill based and you want races to be skill based. But there's something authentic about an actual speedrun on the original game. Like if I say that I'm the world's foremost expert on blah blah blah, That means if I go to my friend's house and he's got that game sitting there on the shelf, I should be able to just pop it in the console and demonstrate that, you know? It's kind of stupid to say, oh, you know, I'm the world's best, you know, speedrunner of this game, but, oh, I need to play on this special card to show you.
Actually, and I guess like a precursor to this was in Banjo-Tooie where like the Jinjo colors are randomized, and if it's, I think, a white Jinjo in like the intro area, then you can get an extra Jiggy, so you can unlock 2 levels at the start instead of 1 when you get to the thing. And essentially they would create a race file that already has that set. So it's always that Jinjo, and they would play off that race file. And so they would.
Can't you do something where you just
fun
beat the whole game and then all the Jinjos are like that? So just
and it's like I
do
can
that.
understand like I think those are like perfectly acceptable if you want like a standard like race file. But if you're doing like for like non-race style speedruns, it's like it's.
I mean, even talking about races and on-site marathons, the first-gen Pokemon games where you need that specific starter with the specific stats, nobody gets that every single time unless, like, I think some of the newer games, there's, like, frame rules that you can use to get the specific Pokemon you want, probably on the older ones as well, but that was part of the game, too, seeing how good of a starter you get. Do you reset or do you continue with what you have? What is your threshold for being good enough? Like...
If you want to talk about modifying those, though, then it gets a weird area where it's like, are you just the starter stats? Because like, why not then modify so that all enemies have shit stats?
Well,
or like
you're talking about the difference.
Every
between
hit is a
using,
crit.
You're talking about the difference between using RNG manipulation and actually hard editing the game software. Pokemon, I mean, not Gen 1, but like later gens 4 and up are pretty RNG manipulatable. So you can, like if you watch a runner, they'll manipulate. They won't necessarily manipulate a perfect starter, but they'll manipulate a best starter with also manipulating the best case scenario going forward X amount of steps.
So it's like, I guess that modifying game files like that, it also removes a certain skill element of dealing with that randomness. And I don't know, it's just a weird area.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of a slippery slope. Like with me running zombies, it's like, well, do I just make a ROM hack and just have the skeleton key at the beginning and just skip that? You know, because it makes the run better and I don't have to sit there for hours on end resetting to get it. Like, yeah, that would make me be able to finish more runs, but that's not what the game is.
I think what would be a good question right now is there any opposition to it being its own separate category? I think I at least want to know. I personally don't find any problem with it.
I understand, and it's like as a race file, but I think for like its own category,
I have reservations, but for a race,
then it's like,
I don't see any problem.
If you're gonna say like, we'll allow like modified games, but it's like, and then it's like, what are you going to allow to be modified? Just the starters? Like if
then why not let everything be modified?
In RPG, it's like, all right, let's just have every hit as a crit, or like everything's god tier. It's like it's like some RNG, because I only want the RNG that's like kind of annoying, but the RNG that's only little annoying, I'll accept that. I don't know, it's a weird area.
Sure, and you don't want to have a million categories for each game, because one person comes up with the hack where they do this, another person comes up with a hack where they change that. A category for everything.
It's weird.
Yeah, I would say like, I have a general philosophy that if like you want to run something, then just go ahead and do it. Like, who cares? But in like,
if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best.
But like,
that applies to speedruns as well.
And something that's already like a pretty arbitrary hobby as far as playing video games fast, and when you start the timer, what you're doing, especially if you get into PC speedrunning, that's just the whole, loading times, the whole deal. But you should generally try to make it as least arbitrary as you possibly can, in my opinion. Play as close to the authentic game as you could possibly get to, and not, edit stuff out to just be favorable.
My issue with like arbitrary categories is like, add as many restrictions whatever you want, is just make sure it's all clearly defined. Because like with Cuphead, where
don't look at the Cuphead leaderboard. I
don't know if they fixed it, but when they made the no like weapon, they wanted to like not allow the weapon swap glitch where it's like weapons would have a cooldown timer for you to like use again for some of them, but if you like swapped back and forth, you could use it again. And by banning that, you'd have to like literally manually count each frame between each shot in order to verify that like the weapon swap glitch wasn't used, and they didn't really define how long. Yeah, they said you have to wait before each shot when you swap, and they don't really define how long.
It was up to mod's discretion.
Yeah, and it's like I'm like, if you're gonna have an arbitrary category, fine, but at least define it. Undefined rules are like inherently a bad idea. Yeah, I don't like it. Because I remember like Memathon, when people would submit, I would submit runs like any %, no major skips except the ones I like, or stuff like that. It's basically the same thing where it's like you're not defining rules. It's just whatever you want them to be, and it's like no, definitions are important.
Well, it seems to be all of the current questions that we have in chat. So unless anyone has anything else to say, I think we'll just wrap up here.
Support your speed friends. Check out Speed Gaming.
Yeah, definitely check out Speed Gaming on like Patreon and where else, Feasel?
Oh, if you wanted to support it,
yeah.
Go to Patreon, and we've got sure. Well, okay, so Speed Gaming, twitch.tv/Speed Gaming, and we also have Speed Gaming 2, 3, and 4 as well. You can go into the profile section on any of those pages, and there'll be links to how to support us, various ways of doing that. But best way is just show up. Just show up and watch races. Follow the channel so you can see when we're going live, and check out our schedule.
Particularly if you're doing a race, showing up is...
Yep, that's helpful. Yes, show up. If you have a race that you've scheduled, show up for it, or let people know that you won't make it. That's
how often do you get no-shows?
More often than I'd like. Probably every day there's some no-show, given everything that's happening. Just make sure you know your time zones. Don't schedule for, this and then not realize that your time zone is different than the person you were talking to. Whoops. Don't schedule things for 6 a.m. when you meant 6 p.m. because then Feasel has to wake up at 6 a.m. and find out there's nothing happening.
Right.
It's all right. But just show up and watch. That's all we ask.
Great. Well, thanks, Feasel. I'm glad we were able to reschedule and make this all work out. Thanks to everybody else for being here, and we'll see you next time on No Major Opinions. Bye.
Bye. See ya.
No Major Opinions was recorded in front of a live Twitch audience.